Hey everyone, and welcome to FinTech. Today I'm going to be talking about two separate but related concepts: financial independence, retire early or FIRE, and financial minimalism. I'm going to be talking about some of the differences between these two concepts, as well as some ways that they can complement each other really well. Let's start with financial minimalism. Financial minimalism to me means removing any extraneous expenses from your life which don't bring you personal fulfillment. Now that's a pretty vague definition, so let's get specific. As a financial minimalist, nothing annoys me more than subscriptions taking a cut out of my paycheck every month. When I create my budget each week, immediately seeing tens or even hundreds of dollars of that already being pre-allocated to different subscription services makes me feel like I'm being tied down to these financial obligations which don't necessarily bring me a ton of value. Now obviously some of these recurring payments are important. My internet bill is kind of like a subscription, and I obviously get value from that because it allows me to work and make money. I also pay for an Amazon Prime membership because the extra time and savings that I get from just ordering all my essentials on there are worth the cost of paying that every year to me. While other subscriptions I've cut from my life recently, including music services like Spotify, as well as TV services like Hulu. I love listening to music, but I've found that while working from home, I can just as easily open up a YouTube playlist of songs as going on a music streaming service. Similarly, since the building I live in provides cable access and I can always go on Amazon Prime for movies or just watch videos on YouTube, I found that having a separate TV subscription really wasn't worth it for me. So these services, which did used to provide me value, I realized are no longer giving me anything for my life, so I just cut them out. That's the core of financial minimalism. It's not about being cheap or being stingy. It's about focusing on the things that actually bring you happiness in life and cutting out all the other expenses. You might buy a big house because you think that you're supposed to since you can afford it, when in reality, you might be a lot happier having a smaller space to clean and a smaller mortgage payment each month. I think another important aspect of financial minimalism is focusing on things that you gain value from, not necessarily what other people think is right for you. Maybe people on the street would be impressed if I wore name brand clothes or wore nice shoes, but I wouldn't really be gaining any value from that, since I just want to wear something that's comfortable, but it's also high quality and won't fall apart. In general, I would say my default is to not spend money on anything and then make exceptions for certain kinds of spending. Anything that makes me more productive or helps save me time, I may consider spending money on. For example, if I could spend $5 to save 2 hours worth of my time, yeah, I'll probably spend that money. But if it's going to cost me $100 to save 2 hours, probably not. I'm also willing to spend money on my health. I think taking care of yourself physically is one of the most important things you can do, both for your happiness now as well as in the future. There's no point in saving a bunch of money to retire only to be in such poor health by the time you reach your 60s that you can't even enjoy those years. So for example, during the lockdown, I bought workout equipment when I couldn't go to the gym. I also have a really nice pillow that helps me get a better night's sleep each night. I kind of think of these things like having their own return on investment, because spending a few dollars now can result in great returns later, both in terms of improved productivity as well as just a better quality of life as you get older. The last thing that I'm willing to spend money on are things that will make me more money. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll notice that the background in my videos has changed recently. Well, in order to set up this background, I had to go out and buy some paint, buy some new shelves, buy these nice new plants here. They're fake, but I think they make the room look better. I think just having a nice background makes the videos more enjoyable to watch, and that's money well spent helping me to grow this channel. At the same time, I didn't go crazy expensive and hire a professional to do the work for me. I just painted the walls myself and put up the shelves on my own to save the extra money. It was actually pretty fun to do myself, and honestly, looking at it now gives me a greater sense of satisfaction knowing that I did it myself versus just paying someone else to do it. And that's really the takeaway from financial minimalism: spending money on things that give you fulfillment while cutting out any expenses or spending that don't. A related but separate concept to this is financial independence, retire early, or FIRE. This is both a mindset and a movement of people who try to seek to escape the wheel of working 45 years just to maybe save up enough money to retire someday. The fear is by the time you're in your 60s and you actually retire, you might be too old to really enjoy your life at that point. Plus, you wasted the previous 45 years not doing the things that you wanted to do. The FIRE movement was born out of the best-selling book from 1992 called Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. In the book, they talk about how whenever you spend money on something, you are making the choice to sacrifice however much time it took you to earn that money on getting that thing. While traditional advice is to save 15% of your income toward retirement, by saving a much greater percentage of your income each year, you can effectively reduce the amount of time in your life that you spend working. This could be by working fewer hours, or in most cases, by retiring early. There are many examples of people who have saved 50, 60, 70% of their income while in their 20s and 30s so that they could retire long before previous generations even thought it was possible. Now, these numbers might seem a little bit extreme, but once you look into the reason for saving that much money, they start to make a lot of sense. The main reason that saving a large percent of your money while you're young is so important is because of the time value of money. When you save money for retirement, you should be investing that money in the stock market. Now, if you look at the stock market over a long period of time, on average, it returns around 8% per year. This means that each year you have $1 invested in the stock market, you'll earn around 8 cents in interest over the course of that year. So let's look at an example of how saving more money affects your retirement age. I'm using this calculator on Networthify, which is built specifically for FIRE calculations, but you could also just use a normal compound interest calculator. So if I put into this calculator that I make $50,000 a year after taxes with an 8% return on investment, and let's say I save 15% of my income each year. Well, after 32.6 years, I would be able to retire. Now, what does that mean exactly? That means that after 32.6 years, my investments would be producing enough income that it would completely cover my expenses. We can see this clearly by looking at this other chart that's provided on this website, where you can see that each year of having your money invested, what percent of your expenses would be covered by your return on investment. So you can see for these first couple years, it's only 1%, 2%, 4%, but then it starts to increase exponentially each year, until eventually after 25 years, you have 99% of your expenses being covered by just the interest that your investment is throwing off. Now, you'll notice that this chart goes on for a couple years after age 25. And the reason for that is because of the assumption we made that you'll make 8% in the stock market each year. While over a long time horizon, that's true, you'll on average make around 8%. In a much shorter time horizon, it looks totally different. Realistically, in 1 year, you could lose money in the stock market, or you could make way more than 8 cents. So in order to be conservative and not run out of money, this calculator makes the assumption that you'll only withdraw 4% from your retirement savings each year after retirement. And using this rule, you can continually pull money off of your retirement account and it will be replenished by those investments every year, effectively letting you retire forever. But how does this relate back to saving money or financial minimalism? Well, let's go back to that calculator and see what happens if instead of saving 15%, I save 30% of my income each year. Well, when I run that calculation, I'm now able to retire in 22.5 years. Because we're using compound interest to build up the nest egg over time, the more money you can save up front, the greater effect that is going to have, and the earlier you're going to be able to retire. Now, let's say that you go to the far end of the spectrum and you save 50 or even 60% of your income every year. Well, at that point, you could retire in just 11 years. Many in the FIRE community ask themselves, is sacrificing luxuries for around a decade worth the potential to be able to retire for the rest of my life? And for a lot of people, that answer is yes. But this is where financial minimalism comes in. Like I said earlier, financial minimalism isn't about sacrificing to save more money. It's realizing that most things that people spend money on doesn't bring them happiness. I was first turned on to the idea of financial minimalism and the FIRE movement in general by the idea of the hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill is just an observation around human behavior, that no matter how many good things or bad things happen to somebody, they will generally return to a normal level of happiness relatively quickly. Let's say you're working a job that pays you $50,000 a year and suddenly you get a $5,000 bonus. So you take that bonus and you go on vacation and you have the time of your life. Now let's say, for a different example, you again make $50,000 a year, but then you get a $5,000 bonus every single month. So every month you're able to go and take a lavish vacation. Well, the first couple vacations are probably going to be a lot of fun and they'll bring you a lot of happiness. But after a while, those vacations are just going to start feeling routine and you're going to return to a normal level of happiness. Let's say then that you got a huge raise and started making $100,000 per year. So you started going out and buying nicer clothes, eating out at restaurants all the time. Again, it would make you happy for a little while, but very quickly you would return to a normal level of happiness and your increased spending wouldn't be generating any value for you. When you really embrace this concept, it shows that spending money to make yourself happy is just a short-term solution. And once you get used to spending that amount of money, you're not getting the same value and happiness out of it that you used to. This is part of what led me to financial minimalism, where you only spend money on things that will actually bring you happiness. If you are a financial minimalist, you can apply the FIRE method to your own life and apply the extra money that you save every year to retiring early. Unlike other groups within FIRE, however, you're not sacrificing in order to save money. You're simply spending money on things that bring you happiness and cutting out everything else. This is important because once you do retire, you won't feel like you need to increase your spending to reward yourself from all the years that you were working, meaning you won't need to save as much money for retirement in the first place. To me, this is the distinction between FIRE and financial minimalism. FIRE is the broad concept which teaches you how you can retire early by saving your money and investing it, while financial minimalism is more of the mindset that will lead you to naturally save more money. One doesn't necessarily require the other, but they do complement each other really well. If you haven't before, I would encourage you to look through the different spending you have in your life and look at things that maybe used to bring you happiness, but don't really anymore. It could be a subscription service, it could be a nice car that you have, it could be a video game that you keep dumping money into. Try to find an area where you can cut your expenses and then use the same FIRE calculator, which I'll link in the description of this video, to see how long it would actually take you to become financially independent and retire early. Now, maybe even after cutting out extraneous expenses, that's still a really long time. And you might feel motivated to try to reach it earlier, either by increasing your income or finding other ways to cut back on your spending. Or you may realize that early retirement isn't all that unreachable after all. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like. And if you don't want to miss out on any future videos, make sure to both subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll see you next time.